Oppenheimer, directed by Christopher Nolan, was released on July 21st, 2023, and since then it has been a huge success in the box office, and I got the chance to see this movie last Saturday, and since then I cannot stop thinking about it because this is going to change the definition of cinema. Like many of Christopher Nolan's other works, this movie is a wonderful film. As opposed to movies like Interstellar or Inception that have gained a lot of traction over the years, I think this movie will be no different. It's a wonderful story, it is brilliantly written, and despite the constant change in scenes going from past to future, it was very easy to follow. Certain movies cannot do this very well. An example, in my opinion, Marvel's Eternals was very difficult to follow. It went back and forth a lot from the past to the future, and I constantly wondered where the characters were in time, what it had to do with the story. However, this movie was not the case in that aspect. I 100% understood where we were every time, and I understood the story, and I understood the characters and what they meant and what they were feeling. And that's not easy to do sometimes when you're doing time jumps like they did, but it worked. And they use a really cool filming technique where they do the future scenes in black and white and they do the past scenes in color. It worked a lot better that way, and it was easier to follow, and I love Christopher Nolan's choice to do that, and especially it being the very first IMAX movie to ever incorporate black and white scenes in its film. I think it's awesome. I loved it so much. In comparison to things like Interstellar, I honestly think this movie is better, not just because of the story, not just because of the score, but the actors. I loved Interstellar so much, I've seen it quite a few times at this point. Probably about a year ago was when the first time I watched it, and since then I've watched it a lot, and I've loved it. But I think this movie stands out amongst that, and I think you have to go see it for yourself to know fully what I mean. It's a wonderful film, and not just because of the music, because Interstellar was very popular, probably for its music as well, but the story was awesome, of course. But the music really did help. It's not written by the same person who did the music for that in this movie, but this music, I think, is better than Interstellar. I mean, you're free to disagree with me in that part if you've seen the movie or if you've heard some of the music. I'm playing some of it right now, but I honestly think that this music stands out amongst Interstellar and complements the scenes even more. In the beginning of the movie, he is sitting in bed at a college campus, and he is looking out into the world, and you get a view in his mind of what he is thinking about, and it looks like infinity. It feels so larger than life, and I think Nolan loves doing that, and especially in movies like Inception and Interstellar. I keep bringing this up, but I mean, it feels so much bigger than the world that we're living in now, and I feel like that's very difficult to accomplish in films. But I mean, this movie really, immersed me in that world and in that time, and I got a true glimpse into what Oppenheimer's mind looked like, and seeing all the flashes of light and sparks and space and all the things he was thinking about. It shows how deep his mind went, and I loved it. The music on those scenes complemented the visuals even more. The visuals especially were amazing. I saw it in my new theater in town. I didn't get to see it in IMAX, unfortunately, which I'm hoping to do tomorrow, actually. So I'll let you guys know if anything has changed. I know it was meant to be seen in IMAX, but I love this movie nonetheless. It's one of the very few movies that has ever been filmed on an IMAX camera, and it is meant to be projected onto an IMAX projector that is an IMAX screen. A lot of IMAXs, but not many movies do that, and only a few, I think maybe just over a dozen theaters in the entire country have the IMAX projectors and the IMAX screens that are set up in the way that Nolan meant for it to be viewed. So if you don't live in those areas, it's going to be very difficult to watch and view the movie the way that he wanted people to view it. But nonetheless, I watched it in my theater, not in IMAX, and I still loved it, and I thought that the cinematography was amazing. But for him to use those techniques and do the black and white scenes and break records, it's a big step and it's a big risk, but he did great, and I loved the visuals in this film. It was amazing. On top of the amazing music and visuals, I thought that the acting choices from certain people, as in Cillian Murphy, Emily Blunt, Robert Downey Jr., all of those people, Matt Damon, they're all amazing people, and they did great in this film. I never once while watching it thought that, you know, Cillian Murphy was acting as Oppenheimer. I truly saw him as the character. I saw him as Oppenheimer, not just because he looked like him, but because I've seen videos of him back in time whenever the real Oppenheimer, you know, would speak publicly, and I think that he portrays him amazingly, and I believed him as that character. I didn't think he was putting on a show, or, you know, putting on some other character, and or like putting his own spin on it. No, I believed he was Oppenheimer, and I think that's even more difficult to do because it's a historical figure and you have something to go off of, whereas other characters, you know, you can be original with it, but it's got to be difficult. I know it is, but he did great. And certain other characters, such as Emily Blunt, some people I've seen say Emily Blunt can't act, which I think is insane. I've seen her in quite a few movies, but she did even better in this movie than I would have ever thought. I mean, you don't really see her much in serious movies. You see her in stuff like, you know, she was in the Mary Poppins Returns as Mary Poppins, and it's, you know, it's light and it's whimsical, but seeing her do a lot of very serious acting and very serious scenes in this movie was fresh, and it was a nice change in pace for her because, you know, you don't really see it that much, but she did amazing with them, and I think she deserves an award for her character choices in it. Certain other people, such as Robert Downey Jr., also stole every scene he was in. I think that he looks even more like his character than Cillian did as Oppenheimer. So if you go in there and look up what Strauss looked like and what Robert Downey Jr. looked like in the film, I mean, it's like a spitting image of him, and it's crazy. But I mean, he stole every scene he was in, as did Emily Blunt, but he even more specifically did, and I think he deserves an Oscar for it and some sort of award for all three of them. He portrayed the anger through the screen in such a outstanding way, and I truly believe the emotions he was feeling, and it was insane but super believable. And I think he's a wonderful actor. You don't really see him much outside of, you know, Avengers lately, and I think this is going to create a new record for him where, you know, he won't only be thought of as Iron Man, because, you know, that's really a lot of what you've seen him in, and you know that he can do other characters as well and do them very well, for a matter of fact. So I think he did great. All three of those people really stole the show. There were a lot of cameos in this movie from many random actors. I mean, the lineup, I mean, for certain actors, you see that everybody in Hollywood basically wanted to be involved in this movie because they had huge character names that had one-liners in this movie, and that is it, and they really weren't seen again. Or if they were, it was just for another one-liner. You know, it's crazy. I mean, Roderick from Diary of a Wimpy Kid was in this for whatever reason. We got Dr. Brenner from Stranger Things, or Papa. He was in this for some reason. I'm blanking on the actor's name, but I know him mainly, which I know he's been in a lot of other stuff, from Night in the Museum. He was the prince or the pharaoh or whatever he was. He's in this movie for, I mean, not that long of it, but he was in a great scene, and he stole the scene in that one as well. But, I mean, it's crazy because everybody wanted to be involved in this movie. I think once you know that it is a Nolan film, I mean, it has that much more hype behind it. And I loved all the other actors and the cameos that they had in it. It just made the movie that much more authentic and enjoyable because you're like, that person's in that. That person, they're in this movie too. Like, it was crazy, but I loved it. Also, for a 3-hour movie, that's right, 3 hours, not quite as long as Avatar 2, The Way of Water, but pretty long, I was invested the entire time. My mom had said that the beginning dragged just a little bit for her. I can see, I mean, it was kind of slow, I mean, kind of, but I really didn't think it, you know, I was still very invested in it, and I mean, it took a little bit to get the story started to where you want it to go, but I was still invested nonetheless. And for a 3-hour movie, I was constantly entertained and engaged, and it kept my interest the entire time. And I think that's very difficult to do, because a lot of movies can be, you know, an excessive amount of time, and you're like, oh my gosh, please get to the point. Like, for example, I know I'm probably going to get some hate for this, and a lot of people love this movie. I love this movie, but I don't think it needed to be as long as it did. The Batman from, I think it was 2021 maybe, or maybe it was last year, is a great movie, but I don't think that it needed to be as long as it was. I'm sorry if you really like that movie, but I think this did better with that. And that's a fantasy movie, so you would think that it would have, you know, more action and more interest, you know, like keep your eye better, but this one, it did it for me. It was great. I didn't want to look away from the screen. It kept me engaged. not just because of, you know, the visuals, but because of the immersive factor of it. I'm now going to talk about spoilers for this movie. If you don't want to watch the spoilers, then you can skip to this part of the video. It's a timestamp, and you can skip past it, but you have been warned, so here we go. This movie deals a lot with the psychological effect of Oppenheimer, and I mean, you have to know that in history, I'm not a huge history buff, but I've watched videos, like I said before, of Oppenheimer, and especially after the bombs went off in Japan. I mean, you see the terror in his eyes, and I believe that probably changed him immensely, and he felt so guilty. I mean, he has a line in this movie talking about how he believes he has blood on his hands, and he was the one who, you know, created it. He is the father of the atomic bomb, and in this movie it shows the psychological effects that it had on him. I mean, there's a scene where they're in sort of the town hall of the place he created for all the scientists and their families, and the bombs have just went off, and everybody is cheering and stomping, and that's where that whole, you know, it's in the trailer, the sound of the boom, 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 boom has come from. It's crazy. I mean, you see the absolute shock in his eyes of what he's just done, and the weight of everything like quickly coming in, and he's sitting there going, today's a day that America and the world will remember forever. And then it zooms in, and it's just like silent to him, and then it shows, of course, the part where it's a lot, it's heavy, of people's faces and flesh melting off. Then there's a body he steps on that has just been completely charred and is no longer, I mean, you can't even see basically what it is or who it would be. There are families crying. It's a lot, and I can only imagine that for somebody who I just saw in theaters and was like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine how the actual person was feeling after he had done, you know, created the bomb. So it's a lot, and it's crazy, but I think it was interesting that it chose to go that route and show the effect that it had on him, because it makes you feel bad for him, but at the same time, kind of like, you know, he is the villain of the movie because he created the thing that, you know, brought a lot of sadness to a lot of people, but he also, you know, he ended the war for World War II, and, you know, Japan surrendered and everything, and it's kind of, you go back and forth because, you know, he's very popular for that fact because he, you know, he created the bomb and got Japan to surrender, but at the same time, a lot of people despise him for what he did. And I think it was interesting to show the human side of him, that, you know, he didn't just create it and go, yeah, we got him, like, yes, we got him, and he was genuinely affected by the choices that he made. And I thought it was really interesting, and he did a great job portraying Oppenheimer, especially in those parts of the movie. Another thing I want to talk about is the message behind this movie. If you saw in the thumbnail there, I said there's a frightening message behind Oppenheimer, and if you've seen this movie, then you probably know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen the movie, then I'm going to try to step around this area. But the message is basically that we will destroy ourselves in some way, shape, or form. There's a line said by one of the characters talking about how we've been given the weapon. It's in the trailer, actually, but how you gave them the weapon to destroy themselves and they are not ready. And then at the end of the film, it really touches on the fact that we basically already done that, and we all have bombs big enough to, if we wanted to, it would destroy the world. My stepdad actually said while driving home that, I mean, if one person were to drop a bomb on the wrong area, then that person would create a bigger bomb to drop back on that area, and there would be nothing left. And it's frightening. It's very frightening. But it's kind of true, because, I mean, back then people were creating the bombs. Can you imagine how big they could be now in comparison to what they would be able to create back then? I mean, it's scary, and knowing that it could happen is even more scary. But it's a heavy topic for a movie like this, but I think leaving the theater, it just made me think even more about it, and knowing that the message behind this is basically that we have already destroyed ourselves, and that if we wanted to at any time, we could. So, that being said, that is very frightening, and that is the true message, I believe, behind Oppenheimer, and, you know, like, what he had done for the country and for the world, and that it was not all positive. That being said, I still really love this movie. So many aspects go into why I loved it. I mean, the story, like I said, the cinematography, the actors, the music. I mean, just everything about it was pure gold. And I think Christopher Nolan, just like James Cameron, has a really, really good understanding of filmmaking and how to make a great film that audiences love, that keep you engaged, no matter the length. And I think that that really goes for any movie, that no matter the length, it should still keep you engaged in some way, shape, or form. I think this will change cinema, and not just cinema, because I think it will change Hollywood. Because you really don't see many movies about historical figures that break records and are as big as this one was. They can be popular, but I don't think you really ever hear anybody say, oh, this is like one of the top highest grossing movies of all time, and it's a movie about like someone from history. You don't really ever hear that. But I think this will work its way up there. I mean, it's already made like millions in the box office, and I think it's just going to continue to make more. So I love it, and I highly advise you all to go see it. And I think that this will change Hollywood's perception on what audiences will enjoy and what they will partake in. Because I think Hollywood is, constantly thinking that the movies that are going to be up there and, be the top ones are always the ones about fantasy or, or fiction and things that, kids enjoy, or people who just love fiction movies enjoy. But it can be, this movie proves that it can be simple and about somebody's life. And as long as you film it well and do it well, audiences will go watch it and people will go see it. And I think it truly will show Hollywood what can be done, and maybe create a new era of movies like this that hopefully will be just as good. So yeah, I think it will change cinema, and it already has. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. And like I keep saying, I really think you should go watch it and see for yourself everything that I've been saying. So thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like if you guys enjoyed, and hopefully you're enjoying this sort of mini series now, I guess I'm doing, because I did this will change the definition of cinema for Avatar 2, and now I'm doing it for this. So if I see another movie that I think will change the definition of cinema, I will do another movie review. And yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this, and thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe if you already have not, and I will see you all next time. Bye.